Episode 159. This week we're talking about calming dogs down or jollying them up. What's the difference? Why does it matter? And how do you pick one? Find out this week. You're listening to the Creating Great Grooming Dogs podcast. I'm Chrissy Neumeyer-Smith. I'm a certified professional groomer, a certified behavior consultant for canines, a grooming instructor at Whole Pet Grooming Academy, where I also teach my online program, Master Groomer Behavior Specialist, and I'm the owner of Happy Critters in Nashua, New Hampshire. And this, my friends and colleagues, is the podcast where grooming and training meet. When you want to calm a dog down, you tend to talk real slow. Slow it down. It's about volume. It's about tempo. It's about relaxing and thinking about calming them down. And I think that that's my go-to. Most of the time, that's the first thing I'm going to try. I'm going to try to all right, relax. Words are extended. It's a little bit softer volume. The tempo of anything I say is slower. And if that is helping, I will continue. If it's not helping, I'll stop. But the opposite of that, there's another whole technique we can use, which is when we're trying to jolly them up, which is a little bit more of the, "Hey, sweetie pie, are you okay? Can you come over here? Hi, can I touch you? That's it. See, that's not a big deal." I know, and that's squeaky talky, baby talky. Sometimes it's a little bit more like, "Hey, buddy, you're okay. Yeah, buddy. Yeah, that's it. That's it. That's it." Let me tell you, that's the one that owners tend to gravitate toward. As I was thinking about making this particular episode, I really had to give it some thought as to what the differences are, and I don't really think about which one I pick. So I had to really give it some thought. So let me tell you what I came up with, because it's just on autopilot for me at this point. What I came up with is dogs that are being wiggly, I tend to try to calm them down, to just help them relax and slow down. If I want slow, I have to be slow. Now, the dogs that I give pep talks to, that I try to jolly them up, try to get a little bit of silliness, are the dogs who are afraid to interact with me. Now, that's a little bit different than just being wiggly on the grooming table. That's the dog who's kind of curled up in a ball or who doesn't want to actually even look at you, that needs somebody to be a little bit playful. Now, playful can be helpful. We might want a little bit playful, but there are times when playful is really not helpful, and it's the one that owners go to. So let me give you an example. I had this little dog I was grooming the other day, and usually the daughter, who's in college, is the one there who will hold him for his nails. All I need is someone to just hold him in their arms, not really say anything, just give him a comfortable place to be while I can do his nails, hold his leg in whatever comfortable position he likes. I do that with some of these little guys. You know, instead of lifting their legs or twisting their feeties around, they just aren't built very well. Just have somebody hold them and just trim the nails. The daughter's usually pretty good about it. Mom, I'm trying to get her like, okay, we're trying to calm him down. We're calming him down. And she's like, "You're doing so well. You're doing so well. It's okay. It's okay. You're a good boy. You're a good boy." And I was really surprised that it didn't rev him up, because a couple years ago, it totally would have sent him into orbit. And I'm looking at her going, "But we're trying to calm him. We're trying to slow him down. So let's not say anything." And that might be the tactic you take with an owner who just cannot stop giving the pep talk. Your dog doesn't need a pep talk. Your dog needs to help focus. To help focus. And I think it can be really difficult to understand the difference. Which is actually what made me do this episode, is that owner was like, "Oh, wait a minute, that's not what I was doing? I thought I was calming him down." Because in her mind, she's trying to relay this idea that this is safe and it's going to be okay. But all of her actions were actually going to increase his activity level. If you think about when you want a dog to be more comfortable with you and to be silly, you would want to bring some silliness. That's when you bring the silly. I want to get you to lighten up and be silly with me, so I'm going to bring the silliness. if I want you to calm down and be slow, I need to slow things down. Dogs aren't really paying all that much attention to the kind of things we say as much as they're paying attention to the mood that we are trying to put out there. So they'll try to match our mood, you know? And as an owner of border collies, if you've been listening to the show for a while, you probably know I have border collies, and my last dog was a border collie, and the dog I grew up with was a border collie. I don't need to rev my dogs up. So I think my default setting is always a let's try calming down first. And then if it's not working, if it's not making that dog feel more calm, comfortable, and cooperative, if I'm not getting more calm, comfortable, and cooperative from that, then I might choose to change it up to a can I get you a little bit excited? Can I get you a little bit playful? Can I get you a little bit silly? And kind of pep it up a little bit like, hey, buddy, who's that? What's going on? Are you okay? Yeah? Do you want me to do some more? Oh my God, who's so cute? Who's so cute? Let me get that piece. Yes, good job. All of that talking that we do. But like I said, I have border collies. If I do that at the wrong time, they're always up for a game. They're like, yeah, let's play a game. I think a lot of our dogs are up for a game. That is not going to help calm them down. I have another owner who the husband's really good at it, but the wife starts in with, and we're going to see the chipmunks later, and then we're going to have some cheese when we're all done being groomed, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do this, and you're okay, you're okay, you're okay, you're okay. If I were trying to calm a dog down by going blah, 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 I think we all recognize that that's not calming. But if I wanted to pep them up a little bit, right? Then that would be how you do it. If you want to get a dog to be playful, you don't come in and go blah, 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 blah. If we take the words out, I think it's easier to see, well, to hear, that one is more soothing and one is more peppy. So there are two different things that we can try. And it's not going to be the same for every dog. It's not going to be the same for every situation. Maybe for one particular part of their grooming, they need help being calm, and another part of their grooming, being a little bit silly, is fine. There are times when I want a little bit of silly. Maybe I'm just trying to see what their expression is on their face to see if their ears look even or if their face looks quite even. Things that you're just kind of making those silly little noises, trying to get them to perk up their ears and look at you maybe straight. Maybe it's this dog that, keeps wanting to sit and is being kind of nervous, and you're just trying to help him stand up. Help him stand up, wake him up a little bit, help him feel comfortable that you're fun and everything's fine. But those two things, they're very, very different. And I think that, like I said, it didn't occur to me that an owner might be having trouble distinguishing between the two. It's like someone really thought that she was being calming when absolutely not. So, one of the ways I describe it to owners is if they need to calm a dog down, I want them to think about, I mean, I don't have kids, but a lot of my customers do. I want them to think about you're trying to put the baby to sleep. This isn't when you come in and go, time for a nap. Okay, it's time for a nap. Or you're trying to rock a baby to sleep and just gently put them in the crib. Like, oh, they finally fell asleep. Maybe I can get some rest, And you're gently, quietly trying to get them to go to sleep. That's more of the calm down. That's more of the kind of things that we do when we're trying to calm a dog down. And that's usually my default if the dog is having some trouble with grooming. I'll usually start there. I'm like, hey, buddy, can we just slow this moment down together? And then, you know, when owners hear that, owners who've had kids, usually that makes them go, oh, right. I would not put a baby to bed by going, it's time for a nap. Gotta go. Right. And later on, we're going to have some cheese and we're going to see some squirrels. Like that's not calming. So when we think about calm, you want to calm a dog down. That's going to be for when they're a little bit silly, they're wiggling around, and you want them to be slower. So think about this as the gas pedal and the brake. Calm is the brake pedal. We're just slowing it on down. Like, ooh, let's go really, really slow. And then peppy talk and jollying them up is the gas pedal. If we want them to actually stand up and maybe be a little bit more alert, that's the mood that we're going to go for. But these are ways for us to set the mood. If you're enjoying this podcast, please remember to subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes, and tell all of your friends. Now, along with calming them down or jollying them up, we can also add in here that there are a lot of times where just not saying anything might be more helpful. Sometimes we are not helping when we're talking to them. Now, I was taught to be very, very quiet with the dogs. Like we weren't really talking to them. And I think a lot of groomers were taught that way. And yeah, I got away from that on my own. I was like, oh, that doesn't seem normal to me. I talk to them a lot, unless they have trouble with that. Unless that is causing either the dog to slow down more or pep up more, again, the brake pedal or the gas pedal. If it's changing the mood in a way that I do not want, then I have to zip it and I have to be quiet. But quiet can be comforting for some dogs too. Sometimes they're just plain overstimulated, and even us trying to soothe and trying to talk to them and drawing our words out and talking softly might be a little bit too much for them. Sometimes quiet and just not saying anything can be the most helpful thing to do. But think about it, and you have to really look at what the dog in front of you is doing. Now, it's helpful if you know a little bit about how that owner talks to that dog, because I think sometimes when we're using our voice, when we're talking to a dog, it can feel more like home. And if you think about the kind of things in grooming that dogs have difficulty with, are because it's either something they find unpleasant, they find it uncomfortable, or they find it scary. So if we can act a little bit more like the humans they live with, then some dogs are going to find that reassuring. So if we see that an owner is like, oh, hey, I talk to my dog all the time, and when I need to calm him down, this is the way that I do it. Like, oh, hey, baby, you're okay, that might make a dog feel more comfortable with you as a human being. Not necessarily more comfortable with grooming, not necessarily calming them down or pepping them up, but just kind of making them feel more comfortable with you as a person. There's a point when we're trying to just be friends with them. And I know that comes off as very anthropomorphic, but I'm going to throw it out there anyway, because becoming friends with this dog can make a huge difference between someone is doing something scary to me or my friend is doing something scary to me. That's a big, big difference. I encourage you to go ahead and start trying to become friends with these dogs. That doesn't mean that you have to have playtime. However, playtime is helpful. As a house call groomer, I like playing with them a little bit when I come in and a little bit while I'm packing up. And their lasting impression is this playful kind of, oh, hey, this is my groomer. And she comes and she plays with me a little bit. But even if it's a grooming setting and you're in a grooming shop and your dog's on the table, and when you're all done, you're like fluffing them up and patting them and telling them they did a great job. Or maybe it's in between steps when you're like, yeah, good job. I'm going to put you back in a crate. You did a nice job. Okay, we'll get you back on the table again later. That kind of pep talk is probably fairly similar to the kind of things they hear at home. We don't want to be strangers. And think about that for a minute. We don't want to be strangers. We want to build relationships with these dogs and these owners. We want to have these customers for this dog's 15-year lifespan. So if we're using our voice and we're mindful about that, right? That we're not just, spastically shooting out words, but that we're paying attention to the cause and effect. Like, what are we seeing? Do we want this dog to slow down, speed up? How are we going to use our voice to try to encourage them to slow down or speed up? So we can pay attention to those things and really make it part of the way that we groom. And let's get away from this idea that grooming should be super quiet, that we shouldn't be talking to the dogs. That's kind of an old school thinking. And I'm not against old school thinking, but some of the things that we did in the 1900s we know better now. And as someone who was grooming in the 1900s, I'm not saying that it was wrong, but that I have expanded on what I've learned. And a lot of dogs respond really well to us making an effort to talk to them, to communicate with them, to find out what makes them tick. So, again, calming them down, slow down the way you talk, lower your volume. Sometimes a whisper, my volume's gonna autocorrect anyway, but sometimes a whisper, it's almost like they strain to hear you. So it can calm them down a little bit. It can make them pause a little bit so that they can hear you better. It's almost like they're trying to strain to hear what you're talking about. Sometimes shooting it down to a slow whisper is really helpful. I know kind of a generation gap here, but if you can imagine 3 a.m. smooth jazz radio. I am the DJ at 3 a.m. playing classical music, and I'm going to talk real, real slow. Um, versus, hi, how are you? Is everything good? Everything good? Yeah, you a good puppy? That's all going to rev them up. And sometimes that might be exactly what you need. That might be the dog who's in the back of the crate who's worried about coming out. That might be the dog who's worried about jumping into the tub for you. Think about the dog that doesn't want to walk into your shop, that, they're kind of waiting for mom to walk out the door and they're a little bit reluctant. If you can get them to follow you, the things that we do, clap on your leg and tap and like, hey, sweetie pie, come on. Come on, you can come with me. Yeah, come on, it's not so bad. We're going to have fun. That's pepping them up. That's jollying them up. And there's nothing wrong with that. Just that we have to look at the individual dog, the individual setting, and what we're looking to accomplish. Now, that doesn't mean that I talk all day to every dog all the time, but I do tend to talk a lot more than I was taught to. I was taught pretty much you just go through your grooming and you might talk to the other groomers, but don't talk to the dogs. It distracts them, or it'll make them wiggle too much. And sometimes that is true. So, again, silence, third option. We can also just be quiet. If that's what this dog needs, then yes, be quiet. And think about the individual dog, the message that it sends, and adapting. If it's not working, switch it up. So, when we talk about talking to dogs or not talking to dogs, I'm always going to say, go ahead and try talking to them. That old school, don't talk to the dogs. I don't know. I feel like that's not usually my go-to. I find that most of the dogs will do pretty well if you're talking to them. But you have to know how to slow them down. How to slow them down. I need you to be calm. Don't even worry about the words. You could be saying something like, you are so silly. If you could just hold still long enough for me to trim your silly little ear. Just the words don't matter as much as the tone, the volume, the tempo. You could be saying, well, like the owner the other night, it's okay, you can calm down. Everything's going to be fine. You're a good dog. Bup, 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 trying to calm her dog down. I was really actually surprised that he didn't get pepped up because he was listening to me and he's been groomed by me so many times that he's like, yeah, we don't get pepped up for this, Mom. You haven't been home much when we do this. So, again, calming down, jollying them up, and also thinking about the times when you might just be quiet. Now, if someone in the room is pepping up another dog, you might have to counteract that by calming the dog on your table. So if one person on the other side of the room has a dog that they have to, hey, puppy, trying to get their ears and see if they can get their ears up. If they're doing something like that on the other side of the room, for the dog you're with, you might need to be, we're not doing that right now. You're with me and we're calm. And vice versa. So let's go ahead and use our voices in grooming, but let's just be aware of how we're changing the behavior. Are we actually helping a dog be calm, comfortable, and cooperative? Are we seeing improvement? Is this behavior moving in the direction that we hoped it would? And if not, be flexible. Be ready to change it up because every dog is different, every situation is different, and we as individual groomers are different too. If you'd like more information, you can find me at Chrissy@happycritters.net, happycrittersdogtraining.com, or you can join the Facebook group Creating Great Grooming Dogs podcast or the Facebook page Creating Great Grooming Dogs. I really look forward to hearing from you.
If you're ready to go beyond the podcast, and I hope you do, I've made it really easy for you. If you go to creatinggreatgroomingdogs.com and click on your next step, you'll see all of the options. There's the Scholar Lounge community, there's the Modern Grooming Professional Certification, there's Master Canine Stylist and Professional Canine Stylist Diploma testings, there's the Behavior Lab for coaching and private one-on-one sessions with me, and of course, the Master Groomer Behavior Specialist program. So go to creatinggreatgroomingdogs.com and click on your next step.